Coming up next on 30 Minutes, the man, the ministry, the message. 82-year-old Billy Graham says he'll preach until he dies. He's already preached to more than 210 million people worldwide. We'll visit his latest crusade in Louisville. We'll talk to his son Franklin about his plans for continuing the Graham ministry. And what will Billy Graham's place in history be? And what are the stories behind all the photographs of this mild-mannered mountain man? Next on 30 Minutes.
From North Carolina's news leader, this is WRAL's 30 Minutes.
Welcome to a special edition of 30 Minutes. I'm Bill Leslie reporting from the Louisville Crusade of Billy Graham. Back in 1996, Mr. Graham invited a small group of reporters up to his mountain home, and on his front porch at Montreat, he reflected on his amazing career, his family, and the future of his ministry.
This man said, you know, you're going to need a place for quietness and study and so forth, and we think this is the ideal place for you.
40 years ago, on a mountainside where moonshiners made illegal liquor, Billy Graham brought a new spirit to the land.
It cost us $4,000, I think, for the whole place, and we have about 150 acres here.
Billy Graham says he draws strength from this home in the hills, and he says he's strong enough now to preach at least one more year, perhaps even longer.
I have no plans to retire. The Lord may have plans.
Parkinson's disease has slowed him down.
I think God has sent it to me at this age to show me that I'm totally dependent on Him. And when I go into the pulpit to preach, I may have to have a little bit of help getting to the pulpit, but when I get there, I can sense the presence and power of the Lord.
Graham says he first felt the Spirit at age 16 after hearing an evangelist preach in Charlotte. Young Billy Frank left his family and dairy farm and went to a Bible college in Florida and began preaching in the streets.
They have a place there where this saloon keeper threw me out into a ditch and told me never to come back.
Graham got a warmer welcome from this woman. Ruth Bell became his bride in 1943. And as their family grew, so did the ministry. A California tent revival in 1949 drew national attention.
They put me on the cover several times of Life and on the cover of Time at a very early age. And things like that helped tremendously.
He went through all of this period of growing up.
Around the world, crowds began to fill stadiums. They came to hear a lively new message about Jesus Christ.
And he understands your problem. He understands that sense of loneliness and that sense of not belonging and that sense of incompleteness and those problems that you're wrestling with in your life. He understands all about it.
Graham became the friend of presidents, helping them with their problems. And now, at age 78, he has preached to more people than anyone in world history, earning him the nickname, the Protestant Pope.
Why do you think God chose a North Carolinian to do what you have done?
Why does God choose anybody? I don't know. It's the sovereign act of God. And I have not been chosen to do anything greater. I think the man that's preaching down the mountain here in a small church is doing a work that I envy, because that's what I'd like to be doing.
I believe He is the truth and the way and the life.
This sense of humility and integrity has endeared Billy Graham to millions worldwide. And because he believes there is life outside our world, Graham says the gospel may have to be preached on other planets.
Well, that's up to the Lord. I don't think I can make it there in my lifetime. I'd love to, but nobody's invited me to be an astronaut.
Graham says he doubts they would understand him on other planets, but don't underestimate this mountain man from North Carolina. 5 years later, and not in the best of health, Billy Graham is once again putting his faith in God and preaching in Louisville. It's not an ego thing. Graham says, had it not been for the call of God, he wouldn't be here to preach.
Open the eyes of my heart, I want to sing.
37,500 people came to the crusade with open eyes and open hearts. The music was a blend of contemporary and traditional, with crusade veteran Cliff Barrows leading the choir. And 92-year-old George Beverly Shea setting the stage for the sermon with song.
live in glory.
Billy Graham didn't need his cane to walk to the podium, and he delivered a 25-minute sermon. Only once did his voice falter, and though he had a chair, he didn't use it.
I'm not a horse. I know that I'm in horse country.
Saddling up riders for the road to salvation. He spoke of racial reconciliation.
And the only answer to the race problem is love. And the love is the love that God gives. And one of the great things that could come from this crusade would be a reconciliation between different ethnic groups. I believe it's already happening.
I'm here with all these people. There's not one of them that's a person of color. They're of color, they're white. and we love each other, you know? We love each other. So we're reconciling.
The way of salvation is not changed. The Bible teaches there's only one way. Other people will come along and try to tell you there are other ways. But the Bible says there's only one way. Jesus on the cross. He was raised from the dead, and tonight he's alive. If you're with friends or relatives or come in a bus, they'll wait on you. You get up and come. Even if you come from that top tier of seats up there, we'll wait on you. Just get up and come now. If there's a doubt in your heart about your relationship with Christ, come and settle it tonight.
1,300 people answered Graham's altar call. Many were deeply moved by the service.
Most incredible thing I've ever seen. I stood down here when Dr. Graham gave the invitation. I looked around and I saw thousands coming. The most incredible thing I have ever seen, bar none. It's absolutely amazing.
Man, it was awesome. It was so awesome. God was really here, and he touched so many people's lives, and it was so awesome. It was really great. Billy Graham was an awesome speaker, and the music was incredible, and it was the awesomest worship I've had in a long time. It was great.
Having preached to more than 210 million people worldwide, he has earned the nickname the Protestant Pope. And now Billy Graham preaches at Papa John's Cardinal Stadium in Louisville. We'll be back with more of this special edition of 30 Minutes after this. Many of us who grew up in the South called our parents Mama and Daddy, even Franklin Graham, son of the world's most famous evangelist. Today, Franklin still calls his father Daddy, who is also his closest partner in a worldwide evangelistic and humanitarian movement.
His arm.
Franklin Graham has been moved by the human horrors of famine in Africa, the devastation of earthquake victims in Central America, and the tragedy of war in Bosnia. But you won't see him break down or cry on camera. He says he's too busy trying to help.
Hey, we got to do it now. You know, it's not one of these things, well, let's have a committee meeting, or let's talk about this, or let's review it. You know, guys, design it right now and start it now. So that's kind of what we do.
You're a man of action, huh?
Well, I mean, when people's lives are at stake here, you don't have time. And sometimes, you know, my staff will come back, Franklin, where's the funding going to come from? I don't know. Just start, and let's watch God provide it. Well, you know, it's going to cost this. Just start, guys. Do you hear me? You know, read my lips. Start it. And if we have enough money for 10, that's what we'll do is 10. But if God gives us enough money for 11, we'll do 11. But if God gives us enough money for 1,000, we're going to do 1,000. And if God gives us enough money for 5,000, we'll do 5,000. But right now, just start.
Some fear that Franklin Graham's global relief efforts with the Samaritan's Purse will suffer as he assumes more of his father's evangelistic duties.
To the grave, but on the third day, God raised him from the grave. He's alive. He's in heaven. He's coming back.
How do you balance that?
Well, I don't try to balance it. Our crusades, we want to tell men and women about Jesus Christ. The people that we help, we want to tell them about Jesus Christ. So you're not balancing. It's just, this is what we do, you know, and this is why God has called us. This is our work. This is our ministry. So I'll do more crusades in the years to come, not less, but I won't do less at Samaritan's Purse either. Because wherever we go in the world, if we're preaching, we're still doing our relief work wherever we go. So we're not, we won't be backing off.
And Franklin will employ the same rules of the road that have helped his father steer clear of scandal. Rules were not what Franklin liked to live by as a child and teenager. Tales of fistfights, whiskey, and wild rides are legendary, providing fodder for his father's sermons.
The son in rebellion, the son going out on his own, seeking his own identity, doing things that appalls the father. The father becomes angry.
The father's anger subsided when at age 22, Franklin had a religious conversion. The prodigal son had come home. But the son did not lose his anger or rebel spirit. He just learned to channel it differently.
God finally got his attention, and it's real. It's very real. And because God got his attention, and he's always had a heart for what his father's been doing, and he's had his mother's heart of helping people who are down and out, God will use him.
The baton has to be passed to the younger ones. And I think Franklin has got a great vision. He's a great challenge to him to be sure that his father finishes well.
My daddy, Dr. Billy Graham. Daddy?
Franklin says his famous father, Billy Graham, used to plan crusades years in advance. Now it's just 1 year at a time.
Right now he's doing extremely well. I think he is as strong now as he was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even stronger.
If his father falters, Franklin is ready to pinch it in the pulpit. But he says, don't count Billy Graham out yet.
Everybody says, well, could this be his last crusade? He has no intention of quitting.
Franklin Graham is 49 years old now. For more than 50 years, his father has teamed up with a couple of marvelous musicians for crusades all around the globe. At age 92, George Beverly Shea is still crooning those old hymns. And at age 78, Cliff Barrows is still leading the choir. How have these crusades changed over the years? You've been to a few of them, haven't you?
Well, I've been to a few of them in 56 years. Here's one of the biggest changes is this huge platform deal that we have here. And because of the technology involved and the big screens that we use and the bands that come and with the sound that they're used to, we've had to incorporate that into what used to be a very simple crusade setup, but no more. But we still have the same message to proclaim.
If you could, if we could just ask you one question about Billy Graham, if you could just describe him as a friend, and how much longer do you think we're going to have him here with us to preach?
I hope we'll have him a long time. He is a very dear friend. I would say one of my closest friends. We met when we were young men, and our ministry began together before we had a Billy Graham Association, back in the early days of Youth for Christ in the mid-40s. He was speaking at a youth rally, and the song leader was sick. Billy put his arms around me. He was 26 and I was 22. And he said, come on, Cliff, we won't be choosy, let's go. And we went into the service, and within just a matter of weeks, we were together again at Winona Lake, Indiana. And we've been together ever since that time. And it's been a marvelous journey for me.
What a friend we have in Jesus.
How do you keep your voice so beautifully
I'm not sure
tuned?
I'm keeping it. I'm 92, you know, and I notice differences, and I'm just anxious that I stay on pitch, you know, and don't sharp or flat, and that they get the text out, the lyrics, the words. That's very important. And my part is a very simple part, and we have some very exciting guests, you know, come from Nashville and those parts, and do the things with the guitars and the instruments and the voices. And then this old psalm singer comes up and sings a little quiet song before Mr. Graham speaks. And he says he appreciates it, and that's kind of nice, you know, to hear that.
If you could sum up your friendship or your appreciation for Billy Graham, how would you sum that up?
That's a nice question. I met him first in '43 when I was an announcer on WMBI Chicago. He came in to say he was listening to a program, a Southern graciousness, and just it was all over him. Just very human man, and he's touched by the Spirit of God, and very loving, very understanding.
He has preached for presidents. He has prayed for kings and queens. He has put his heart and soul into a globe-trotting ministry that has reached millions. But what will be Billy Graham's place in history? We asked his biographer, Dr. Lewis Drummond.
Well, he's a man that he's so obviously filled with integrity and authenticity. This just shines forth, as it were. Now, he doesn't make an effort to project that kind of an image, but he really is. And one other characteristic that's right in this same line. Everybody you talk to that knows him personally, his honest humility just absolutely comes right to the surface. I will never forget the first time I heard Billy Graham personally was I still in seminary as a student. And he came and spoke in our chapel. That was right back in the very early 50s, about 51. And he said, you know, the Bible never says, pray for humility. The Bible says, humble yourself. I never forgot that, and I think he's exemplified that principle. So his integrity, his authenticity, his genuine humility, but yet, of course, his incredible skill as an evangelist, they're just upfront, unmistakable. He's a great man.
His message has stayed the same, but in many ways his style has changed. You know, he's not, obviously he's older now, but his, you know, it seemed to be a little more fire and brimstone back in those days.
Yes, actually, in his early days, they called him God's machine gun. And if you see the videos, as you mentioned, of those early days, he's all over the rostrum, back and forth, almost down on his knees at times, shaking his fist, you know. The typical, we might say, you know, late 40 evangelist. But through the years, he has, I guess for want of a better term, mellowed. And of course, his age has had something to do with that, but the style as well, because the style that he has now is a little bit more, you know, apropos to our present culture. And this is one thing that's incredible about Billy Graham. He has been so sensitive to culture. No matter where you hear him, here in America or any country of the world, he is so right up on the culture and what is communicative.
Billy Graham speaks with such conviction and a sense of certainty that God is with him. And were there ever any moments of doubt for him?
Well, I'm sure that there were. He had a bit of a struggle, as I'm sure many people are aware, as to whether or not God was actually calling him to preach the gospel. And back in his days as a student at a Bible Institute down in one of the suburbs of Tampa, Florida, out on the 18th green, he just fell on his knees one night and said, Lord, I will preach your gospel. It was a real struggle for him. Then he had another struggle, was God calling him into evangelism. After he finished Wheaton College there in northern Illinois, he became the pastor of a fine little church in Western Springs. But they kept this constant in the background, evangelism. And it was a struggle, and he gave himself to that. One of the biggest struggles in Mr. Graham's life took place just before the great 49 crusade in Los Angeles that just skyrocketed him into prominence and popularity. He was having doubts about the truthfulness of the whole Bible, if you can believe this of Billy Graham. He went out one night, found a tree stump, opened his Bible, put it on that tree stump and said, Lord, I'm going to believe that book. It's your word. I do not understand everything. There are problems that I cannot answer, but I'm going to believe this as your word, your infallible truth, and I'm going to preach it as long as I live.
Let's talk about his place in history.
I believe he has all the earmarks, basically theologically, spiritually, biblically, and in very practical, relevant fashion, that he's not only made a great mark in our generation, but he's going to be like these giants of the faith, like John Wesley, Charles Spurgeon, William Carey, the worldwide vision, because those characteristics are in Billy Graham till you go right back to the first century.
Imagine being the photographer who has captured the career of the great crusader. Russ Busby lives in Burbank, but his bags have been to every corner of the planet, and his photographs have a story all their own. This book, Billy Graham, God's Ambassador, a wonderful, really a pictorial profile of Billy Graham. What are some of your favorite stories and photographs in this book?
That was their 50th wedding anniversary.
Right. Did you take that one?
I took that.
Oh, that's a beautiful photo.
And the one over here with her wedding dress, she said she got almost all of the buttons back, but she couldn't get all of them.
He looks pretty comfortable in blue jeans.
That was given to him by Johnny Cash.
Really?
He feels very much at home in that outfit. He's a very relaxed person.
Yeah.
He's not stuffy at all with anyone. That one I took.
Oh, you took that one?
Yeah, that one.
No, but this was...
That's, I believe, Montgomery, Alabama, when he made the trip through the South during those years. This is where they had that one. No, one, they had 300 policemen when he spoke in Birmingham, Alabama on an Easter Sunday. It was the first time they permitted an integrated service in Birmingham. That one we took. I was in Ireland with him. Yeah.
That was in Ireland, huh?
Right.
Wow.
There had just been an explosion. Actually, that morning early, and he was prepared to go somewhere else, and they asked him if he wouldn't stop by.
That's in Belfast?
In Belfast, right. Muhammad Ali stopped by to see him.
You took that picture?
Yeah.
What was he like? The greatest.
Well, what do you expect? He was very humble.
Was he?
Especially in Billy's, he said, "I look up to you."
Muhammad Ali said that to Billy Graham?
He said, "I look up to you." And they discussed the Bible.
And where was that? At Montreat?
That's on their front porch in Montreat. The reason he was accepted by many political leaders with different ideologies was basically that he did not have a political agenda. He had a religious agenda.
And he would preach in the sunshine and in the rain.
Oh, I tell people I've been drowned at more of his meetings than I care to admit. I tell them that after all, he's Baptist, they believe in total immersion.
I really love this photograph here.
That was in India. We were out for meetings in southern India, and we heard about the tidal wave that killed over 100,000 people.
And he's crying in that photo.
Yes, he is. He's crying because there's a man down here on the ground in one of the other pictures that had just said to him through the interpreter, said, "Either help us," and these were just the family people that were left, "either help us or kill us." In other words, we don't want to go on. We've lost everybody, all of our loved ones. We've lost our whole world that we've lived in. Everything was leveled.
Well, that really touched him.
Yes. Well, when your heart is real, that's normal.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of 30 Minutes, the Kentucky Crusade of Billy Graham. I'm Bill Leslie.